It's like the worst moments of 1927 all over again. When Niels came back from Norway and first read Heisenberg's uncertainty paper, something they both seemed to have forgotten about earlier in the evening, though I hadn't. Perhaps they both suddenly remembered that time, only from the look on their faces, something even worse had happened.
I'm sorry if I doubt yourself any of that.
Yes.
It meant a great deal to me being here with you both again. Perhaps more than you think.
It was a pleasure for us both. Our love to Elizabeth
Of course.
and the children.
Perhaps when this war is over, if we all spared. Goodbye.
Politics?
Physics. He's not right, though. How can he be right? John Wheeler and I...
A breath of fresh air, why not?
A breath of fresh air?
A turn around the garden? Healthier than staying indoors, perhaps.
Well, yes. How could he possibly be right? Wheeler and I went through the whole thing in 1939.
Well, what did he say?
Nothing. I don't remember. I was too angry to take it in.
Something about fission?
What happens in fission? You fire a neutron at a uranium nucleus. It splits and it releases energy.
A huge amount of energy, yes.
About enough to move a speck of dust. But it also releases 2 or 3 more neutrons, each of which has the chance of splitting another nucleus.
And then those 2 or 3 split nuclei each release energy in their turn?
And 2 or 3 more neutrons.
You start a trickle of snow sliding as you ski. This trickle becomes snowball.
An ever-widening chain of split nuclei forks through the uranium, doubling and quadrupling in millionths of a second from one generation to the next. First 2 splits, let's say for simplicity, and 2 squared, 2 cubed, 2 to the 4th, 2 to the 5th, 2 to the 6th.
The thunder of the gathering avalanche echoes from all the surrounding mountains.
Until eventually, after let's say 80 generations, 2 of the 80 specks of dust have been moved. 2 to the 80 is a number with 24 knots. Enough specks of dust to constitute an entire city and all who live in it.
But there's a catch.
There's a catch, thank God. Natural uranium consists of 2 different isotopes. Most of it's U-238, which you can only fission with fast neutrons. Most neutrons that will only fission with the other isotope, U-235, and less than 1% of all natural uranium is U-235.
This was Bohr's great insight, another of his amazing institutions. It came to him when he was at Princeton in 1939, walking across the campus with Wheeler. A characteristic Bohr moment. I wish I'd been there to enjoy it. 5 minutes deep silence as they walked. Then, now, hear this. I have understood everything.
In fact, it's a double catch.
because the 238 also slows neutrons down and absorbs them. So an explosive chain reaction will never occur in natural uranium. To make an explosion, you'll have to separate out all the 235. And to make the chain long enough for a large explosion,
80 generations, let's say.
you would need many tons of it, and it's very difficult to separate.
Tantalizingly difficult.
Mercifully difficult. The best estimates when I was in America in 1939 were that to produce even 1 gram of U-235 would take 26,000 years, by which time surely this war will be over. So he's wrong, you see, he's wrong. Or could I have miscalculated? Let me see, what are the absorption rates for fast neutrons in 238? What's the mean free path flow of slow neutrons in 235?
But what exactly had Heisenberg said? This is what everyone wanted to know, then and forever after.
It's what the British wanted to know as soon as Chadwick managed to get in touch with me. What did Heisenberg say?
And what did Bohr exactly reply? That was the first thing my colleagues asked me when I got back to Germany.
What did Heisenberg tell Niels? What did Niels reply? The person who wanted to know most of all was Heisenberg himself.
You mean when he came back to Copenhagen after the war in 1947?
Escorted not this time by unseen agents of the Gestapo, but by a very conspicuous minder from British intelligence.
I think he wanted various things.
2 things. Food parcels,
For his family in Germany, they were on the verge of starvation.
and for you to agree what you'd said to each other in 1941.
Conversation went wrong almost as fast as it did before.
You couldn't even agree where you walked that night.
Where we walked? Fairley Park, of course. Where we went so often in the old days.
But Phelan Park is behind the Institute, 4 kilometers away from where we live.
I can see the drift of autumn leaves under the street lamps next to the bandstand.
Yes, because you remember it is October.
And it was September,
No fallen leaves.
and it was 1941. No street lamps.
I thought we hadn't got any further in my study.
We must have been outside. What I was going to say was treasonable. If I'd been overheard, I'd have been executed.
So what was this mysterious thing you said?
There's no mystery about it. There never was any mystery. I remember it absolutely clearly because my life was at stake and I chose my words very carefully. I simply asked you if as a physicist one had the moral right to work on the practical exploitation of atomic energy. Yes?
I don't recall.
You don't recall? No, because you immediately became alarmed. You stopped dead in your tracks.
I was horrified.
Horrified. Good you remember that. You stood there gazing at me, horrified.
Because the implication was obvious that you were working on it.
And you jumped to the conclusion that I was trying to provide Hitler with nuclear weapons.
And you were.